Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, here's a statistic that might just stop you in your tracks a bit. Only about 1 in 10 people in the U.S. actually end up dying wealthy. That really makes you think about what financial freedom truly means, doesn't it?
It certainly does, yeah.
Yeah.
That figure, well, it points to a real challenge, I think, in how most people navigate their financial lives,
Yeah.
how they build any kind of lasting security.
And that's precisely what we're going to explore today. We're diving deep into the insights of Cody Sanchez. She's a really compelling entrepreneur, went from basically nothing to millions relatively quickly, too. And she shared her story, her strategies on the Diary of a CEO podcast recently. It was a YouTube video titled The Money Expert, From $0 to $1 million in 2 years without any hard work. Cody Sanchez, E258.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. It was a truly insightful conversation. Cody brings, well, a really valuable perspective, drawing on her, 15 years in finance,
Yeah.
Wall Street, and investing in, over 100 companies.
Absolutely. So for you, the learner listening, and our goal with this deep dive is really to pull out the most actionable stuff, those surprising aha moments from Cody's experiences. We want to figure out how to break down those barriers to real financial freedom, understand the language of money, but, without leaving you feeling totally overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's unpack this. One of Cody's core ideas that really struck me was this belief that society's kind of shifted from a nation of owners to a nation of renters.
That's a powerful way to put it, isn't it? It speaks to this feeling, maybe, of being stuck in a cycle without real control over your financial future. And, when we talk about that shift, owners to renters, it's probably worth thinking about the bigger picture, too. Societal factors like how work is changing, rising costs of, traditional assets like houses.
Right. Exactly. And Cody's whole mission, it seems, is to empower people, individuals, to take back that control by embracing ownership in different ways. And this really connects with that desire so many of us have, just to feel more in charge of our lives, not like we're just constantly running to stand still. She even described 3 listener profiles she had in mind, avatars, she called them.
Yeah, understanding those different situations helps us see how her advice might click, depending on where you are.
Okay, so first she mentioned working John or Jane. This is someone maybe stuck in a job they don't love, often because of those golden handcuffs, right? Good pay, benefits, makes it hard to leave even if you're unhappy, or maybe just big responsibilities. They're looking for a way out but feel trapped. And interestingly, this was Cody's own experience early on in finance.
Yeah, it's quite telling. Even with that financial success, on paper anyway, she felt that lack of autonomy, that desire for a soft landing, as she put it, outside corporate life. That feeling, the gilded cage thing, it's surprisingly common. So the insight there is maybe recognizing that a high salary doesn't always mean freedom. And that pull towards control is a really strong motivator.
Then the second group, the aging population, people over, say, 50 or 60, they might be facing challenges finding traditional jobs, but they still got potentially 30 or 40 more active years ahead. Cody sees business ownership as a really viable path and evolution for this group.
It really flips the script, doesn't it? Instead of feeling like you're maybe facing obsolescence in a typical career, you see this chance to leverage all that experience, become your own boss. Makes you wonder how many people at that stage could be channeling that wisdom into building something for themselves,
Totally. And the third group, the pipe dream chasers.
Yeah.
These are folks who might have been pulled in by the shiny objects, the get-rich-quick stuff, highly speculative real estate, maybe NFTs recently, things that might not actually provide stable long-term security. They often need something more reliable, a side income, or just a better safety net.
Right. These are the people maybe chasing trends, that promise of overnight success, instead of focusing on the fundamentals of building wealth through ownership. Cody's focus on buying and building actual sustainable businesses, it just feels much more grounded. It really makes you contrast chasing a quick win versus building something, with lasting value.
It really does. Makes you think about which of those might resonate with you. Right. Now, one of the biggest roadblocks Cody talked about on this path is psychological. It's fear, that universal thing. And she specifically mentioned how our loved ones, often without meaning to, can hold us back.
Oh, this is such a key point, yeah. The people who care the most, acting with the best intentions, can sometimes, accidentally, become a source of limitation just because of their own worries or how they see risk.
Exactly. They prioritize safety, security, which is understandable. They ask things like, are you sure the grass is greener over there?
Hmm.
Cody even realized her own loved ones, who were super supportive, were part of the reason she stayed put in situations that were comfortable but not fulfilling. Real growth, she argues, often means stepping out of that comfort zone, taking, calculated risks.
Yeah, their concerns, they come from a place of care, right? But they might reflect their comfort levels, their view of risk, which might not match your potential or what you're aiming for. It raises that tricky question. How do you balance their advice and worries with your own ambitions?
But she makes a really good point, too. Not everyone's a huge risk taker, ready to burn all the bridges behind them. Gradual steps are totally valid. For her, that big first step into ownership actually came while she still had her corporate job. It was sparked by, frustrations with her CEO, feeling like she wanted to be the one calling the shots. It wasn't her casino, as she put it.
That desire for autonomy, right? To have the final say, reap the rewards directly from your own efforts. It's a huge driver for a lot of people who end up starting their own thing. It's about wanting to build something on your own terms.
And that leads us right into the first concrete thing she did, buying a boring business. She really stressed that this first leap into the unknown world of ownership is often the hardest part, the biggest hurdle.
Definitely. It's breaking away from what's familiar, that perceived security of a regular job. That can feel the most intimidating. Just overcoming that inertia, that's a big win in itself.
Her thinking for that first business, a laundromat, she bought it for $100,000, was that it, ideally, wouldn't need full-time hands-on management, which was key, since she was still working her finance job. Plus, the financial risk felt, manageable. And interestingly, she leaned on her past experience as a journalist who'd actually spent time digging into the finance world.
That's a great example, isn't it? How different experiences can connect and give you an edge you didn't expect. She developed this understanding of how deals work, financial structures, even if she hadn't, run a laundromat before.
Right. She saw that the basic principles behind a billion-dollar deal weren't actually that different from a smaller one. And to handle the day-to-day of the laundromat, which she knew nothing about, she did something smart. She partnered up, found someone who really knew the laundromat business.
Finding an experienced operator. Yeah, that's a really intelligent move. Mitigates risk, taps into expertise that's already there. It lets you focus on the strategy, the financials, while someone else handles the daily operations.
Okay, but a question that always comes up is, why would a profitable business, one that seems successful, even be for sale? Cody pointed out that owners, even of thriving businesses, might just be ready to retire, or they're simply tired of the daily hassles of running a small operation. It kind of busts that myth that only failing businesses are on the market.
Burnout is definitely real for small business owners, and wanting to retire or just change lifestyle, that creates real opportunities for buyers. It's a good reminder that often personal reasons drive these big business decisions.
She even calls these first businesses gateway drug businesses, kind of playfully, maybe not the ultimate goal, but super valuable for learning deal-making. And just shifting your whole mindset about ownership. And the number of small businesses potentially for sale is actually huge, apparently. Millions. Many never even get listed because the owners don't realize they could sell or how to even start.
It's like this hidden market, really. Huge potential for people willing to look and, learn the process. Makes you think, what overlooked local businesses are right in your own backyard? That might be an opportunity like that.
Okay, so the big takeaway here seems to be, you don't necessarily need a huge pile of cash just sitting there to get started. Cody really demystified the whole art of deal-making, emphasized it's more about smart strategies, understanding structures, than just having deep pockets.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting, and where a lot of people probably have a blind spot. It's about financial intelligence, really, creative problem solving.
She explained that, sure, knowing the specific industry helps, but it's not essential. What's more important is understanding the basics, the financials. Being able to read a balance sheet, a P&L statement, which she says isn't rocket science, and knowing how to find experts, build a network you can tap for info.
Right. Being able to read those core financials and surrounding yourself with people who know stuff, that's way more valuable early on than deep industry knowledge. You can always learn the specifics of a business, but understanding its financial health, that's fundamental.
And get this, she has actually bought businesses for $0 up front. Seriously, it's not clickbait. It's about how the deal is structured, often using something called seller financing. That's basically where the person selling the business acts like your bank. She gave this great example of buying a property management company that way.
Seller financing, yeah, it can be incredibly powerful, especially if the seller is motivated and you can set up a win-win deal. They keep getting payments over time, maybe tied to how well the business does after they sell. Instead of you going to a bank, the seller provides the loan, often secured by the business itself. It's a fantastic way to get into a business with little or no cash down, potentially.
Exactly. It just shows that deal-making isn't this zero-sum game, right? Where one person wins and the other loses. Cody really stresses creating win-win situations, maybe even giving the seller incentives based on future performance. It all comes back to the fact that most of us just aren't taught this stuff, the language of deals, of ownership.
That lack of financial education, especially around deal structures, ownership, it's a huge barrier for so many people trying to build wealth. Imagine if financial literacy in schools went beyond just like budgeting and saving, if it actually included the basics of acquiring assets.
So speaking of approaching owners, how do you even start that conversation? Convince them to sell to you? Cody suggests the whole traditional idea of sales is kind of wrong here. It's not about strong-arming someone. It's about finding people who are already leaning that way.
That's a really smart reframe of it. Shifts the focus from hard selling to like skillfully finding and understanding needs that are already there.
She used this funny analogy. Trying to convince a staunch Republican to suddenly become a Democrat. Probably not going to work, right? Instead, the key is spotting those trigger moments. Asking good questions to really get at the seller's true feelings, their motivations. Are they really ready to retire? Do they have a vision for their next chapter that doesn't involve this business?
Right. You basically position yourself as the solution, the person who can help them get what they want, whether that's a comfortable retirement or starting a passion project or just getting out from the daily pressure.
And at the end of the day, you got to build trust. Convince them you'll be a good steward, a good shepherd for their business baby, that you can actually run it successfully. That comes down to rapport, showing you genuinely care about what they built.
Okay, so let's picture someone listening, maybe 25 years old, got $7,000 saved up, thinking, okay, this sounds cool. How do I start? What would Cody say is step one? Her advice was quite specific here.
Yeah, she really hammered home leveraging your unfair advantage. That's the knowledge, the skills, the network you already have from what you're doing now. So if this 25-year-old works in, say, content creation, Cody's advice is, don't just randomly go buy a laundromat because it sounds boring and profitable.
Oh.
Instead, look closely at your current expenses. What are you already paying for regularly? Maybe podcast production, video editing, studio space. Could you potentially turn one of those expenses into an asset by buying a small business that provides those services?
It's about spotting opportunities right next door to what you're already doing, where you have some understanding, some connections. Instead of jumping into something totally new, start exploring inside your existing world first.
She gave a great example. Someone in content could potentially buy a small podcast or video production company, maybe for minimal upfront cash, by using their industry connections and the fact that they and others they know need those services. Or, say you work at a marketing agency that books studio time a lot. Maybe you approach a studio owner, talk about a sweat equity deal or a revenue share in return for bringing them business.
These are really creative ways in, aren't they? Getting into ownership without needing a huge chunk of cash up front. By using your skills, your network, your understanding of a market need, you can potentially get equity or even full ownership through means other than just cash.
And she also stressed really understanding the current owner's avatar. Why are they selling? And how can you be the perfect solution for them? Okay, so we've talked practical steps, but what about the deeper reasons why so many people, maybe in that comfortable middle zone, never quite get to real financial freedom? Cody thinks a lot of it is psychological.
Yeah, the mental game, the emotional side of money. It's often underestimated, but it has huge power over what we do financially, our outcomes.
She argues we humans tend to stick to familiar paths. What we saw growing up, maybe following family footsteps. That's one reason she thinks the internet is such a big deal. It just shows us so many more possibilities. Lets us choose totally new routes. She even described this powerful exercise she did. Women in a finance workshop visualizing money, then using their bodies to show how it felt. And many just instinctively curled up, like fetal position, showing these deep feelings of vulnerability or shame or guilt around money.
Wow. That really highlights the often unconscious negative baggage so many people carry about money, doesn't it? And how those underlying beliefs can seriously block their ability to build and manage wealth effectively.
She realized you can learn all the strategies, all the tactics, but your fundamental beliefs about money. Absolutely crucial. That's why she's big on sharing stories of supernormal people who've done well financially, to help others see, hey, this is actually possible for me too. And it's worth saying again, that statistic. Only 1 in 10 in the U.S. die wealthy.
Yeah, that stat really drives it home. Just earning a decent wage and saving carefully while it's important, it's often not enough on its own. There's usually a missing piece for most people.
Cody had an interesting take, that when you have less money, maybe you're more impulsive with it, chasing that quick dopamine hit from buying something. But when you have more, the focus often shifts. Preservation, strategic growth. She also talked about how the modern world kind of sells us this instant wealth dream, get-rich-quick schemes, which is often the total opposite of the real path, slower, more disciplined, sometimes kind of boring.
Yeah, that constant noise promising fast riches, it can be a massive distraction from the consistent effort, the long-term view, the often unglamorous work that building real financial freedom usually takes.
That story about the slums in South Africa, with lots of big, expensive TVs, that wasn't provoking. Could suggest, maybe, a belief that escaping poverty is unlikely. So you prioritize short-term pleasure, visible status stuff. And then there's that cycle of overcompensating, buying things for external validation because you feel like you lack money.
These behaviors, yeah, they often stem from deeper needs, right? Security, validation, not necessarily from a strategic, informed plan for building wealth. It really speaks to knowing yourself, your relationship with money, spotting those self-sabotaging patterns.
Plus, social media, the endless stream of curated perfection. It creates this mimetic desire, she called it. Wanting things because other people seem to want them, especially successful people. So we end up chasing mansions, sports cars, things that may not even be what we genuinely want.
Yeah.
And you just don't see aspirational content about like owning a successful chain of laundromats, right? Or other less flashy but potentially really wealth-building businesses.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads into this idea of seeing behind the curtain, getting access to info, strategies that aren't common knowledge.
Right. Recognizing that there are different money games being played by wealthy people. And those strategies often operate outside the usual advice of just work hard, save money.
Think about that cab driver Cody mentioned, looking for a way to change things. The key is often access, information, networks. Cody suggested actively looking for chances to shadow or learn from people who are already successful where you want to be, even if it means working for free at first. Making the tea, she called it.
It's about being proactive, seeking out that knowledge, understanding how the financial world really works, not just passively waiting for opportunities. Takes initiative, right? And being willing to learn from those who've already done it.
For Cody herself, that behind-the-curtain moment was in finance. Realizing some really high earners didn't actually work that hard, and that many were, well, kind of average in terms of raw talent. That led to this powerful thought, if they can do it, I can do it too. And the key thing here is approaching it with curiosity, wanting to learn, not with envy or bitterness. She's even gotten insights from talking to actual billionaires.
Learning directly from people who've hit those extraordinary levels,
Yeah.
yeah, that can give you priceless perspectives, challenge your own limiting beliefs.
Her meeting with Jeffrey Kent, founder of Abercrombie & Kent, that was really eye-opening. His secret sauce for long-term success. Basically, time and compounding.
Yes.
61 years running one company. Wow. He also felt the current generation might be vitamin D deficient softies was the phrase.
Yeah.
Maybe lacking resilience because they haven't faced the same level of business hardship as his generation.
That long-term focus, sticking with it for decades,
Yeah.
often a hallmark of real lasting success. And his idea of the third-degree human, strong mind, strong bank account, strong body, that really highlights needing holistic strength, right, as a foundation.
He also said billionaires often have a mission, something bigger than just money, and that many genuinely want to help people who are hungry, willing to act. But, he noted, the ones who actually follow through, surprisingly rare, thinking really long-term, like that almost billionaire investing in relationships with future potential. That's key too. Prioritizing connection, future value, over just immediate transactions. Thinking about the remember when moment, not just hiring someone already at the top. Okay, so how do you even get noticed by these super successful people? Cody's take is clear. Provide value. She calls it the DM test.
Right. In a world where they're just constantly flooded with requests, standing out means being thoughtful, bringing something valuable to the table.
Cody talked about the sheer volume of messages successful people get daily. A generic, any job's going message, almost guaranteed to be ignored, gone. The contrast is when someone reaches out showing they've done their homework, maybe with an insightful analysis of the person's business, a writing sample showing they get their work. the specific idea.
The equation she suggests is simple but powerful, yeah. Ask for as little as possible upfront. Offer as much value as you can. It shows initiative, research, a genuine understanding of their world, their challenges.
Doing your homework, researching the person, showing you actually care.
Yeah.
Even small details like mentioning their dog's name if it's public can make a huge difference. And here's an interesting tip. Maybe target the quiet rich. People with significant wealth, but who aren't famous, not seeking the spotlight. They might be more open to genuine outreach, mentorship. Learn from the steady, maybe unglamorous business builders like that toilet company owner Cody mentioned, not just people with fleeting fame. And speaking of getting noticed, building connections, the power of content creation, huge.
Yeah, creating valuable content can totally flip the script. You go from chasing opportunities to attracting them naturally.
It's about getting that unfair access, as Cody calls it, becoming a magnet for the people and opportunities you want. Content lets you build real relationships with high net worth folks who connect with your message, your perspective. It's a shift away from constant, exhausting outbound sales towards a more sustainable, cost-effective inbound strategy. It also helps you find your humans, right? Those like-minded people who support your growth, share the journey. But be ready for maybe some relationships to change, a shedding of old ties as you evolve.
Growth often means paths diverge, priorities shift, people around you might not be on the same track. So actively seeking out and nurturing new connections that align with who you are now, your aspirations, that becomes really important.
You might even get that vibe from old friends, like who does he think he is now? People who don't get the new direction. Content creation is powerful here too. Reinventing yourself, attracting a new circle that fits who you're becoming. Now, making big changes like this often comes with costs, challenges. Cody calls it the exit tax to freedom.
Yeah, any big life change, leaving a stable but met job, ending a long relationship usually involves costs. Emotional, financial, social. Acknowledging those potential exit taxes is part of processing it, I think.
But she really emphasizes the freedom that can be waiting on the other side of those tough transitions. For her, personally, after a big life change, finding this unexpected tiny townhouse, it was a crucial unlock, a safe space to reinvent, rebuild. So for anyone listening who feels trapped, maybe thinking about a big change, remember, yeah, there might be an exit tax, but the potential for a much better future, definitely there. And when navigating these big choices, goal setting is obviously huge.
Setting clear goals, yeah, well-defined ones, and realistic timelines. It gives you structure, motivation, helps you start and keep going.
Cody found setting a firm date for big decisions like ending her marriage was incredibly powerful. Creates a deadline, forces you to work backward, figure out the steps. And while having a long-term vision is good, she also stresses focusing on the immediate, actionable stuff.
Yeah.
But staying flexible, right, as you learn and evolve. For Cody, being rich isn't just about money anymore. It's fundamentally about autonomy, control over her time, pursuing her passions. And when building a team, strong philosophy there too. Equity, ownership, having skin in the game.
Aligning incentives, yeah. Giving team members a chance to share in the success they help create. That builds a much more engaged, motivated team. More productive, too. It's about moving past that old employer-employee model, fostering shared ownership, shared responsibility.
Cody's core philosophy on building wealth really comes down to this. You can't just save your way there. You have to actively earn it. And the key to earning it, for her, is understanding the language of money, finance. Fluency leads to expertise, she believes, and expertise paves the way to wealth. Her mission is to normalize deal-making, create more business owners, more financially free people. And one of her key mantras for her own business, no more B players.
That focus on A players, high performers, is critical, like she pointed out with those stats. Having B players consistently can really drag down productivity and negatively impact your A players too. They can be surprisingly resistant to growth, kind of sticky.
And let's not forget, even super successful people are still human, not perfect.
Yeah.
Cody really stressed normalizing imperfection, saying openly, yeah, she has bad days, makes mistakes, doesn't have all the answers. If she, with her own flaws and, not coming from some elite background, can do it, then it's definitely possible for others too. She even shared this really vulnerable moment, fear, climbing Mount Baker.
That story is a great reminder, isn't it? Not every fear needs to be confronted head-on. Sometimes the bravest thing is realizing a path just isn't yours and choosing differently.
Yeah, she was hiking this really tough mountain, cold, high technical conditions she hates, feeling this internal pressure to summit, prove her toughness. But she realized, wait, this goal isn't actually mine, and she had the courage to turn back, prioritize her well-being over what others might think. The lesson being, choose your mountains wisely. Sometimes the bravest move is tapping out.
It really underlines aligning your goals, your actions, with your authentic definition of success, of freedom, not just chasing external validation or climbing someone else's mountain.
So, to kind of wrap up our deep dive into Cody Sanchez's insights on wealth, really focus on understanding the language of money, finance. Take calculated risks, pursue ownership, consistently try to provide value, actively look behind that curtain of conventional wisdom. Embrace content creation to build connections, attract opportunities, and remember the path to financial freedom, rarely straight. Overcoming those internal blocks, those external pressures, absolutely crucial.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you, the learner. Reflect on the mountains you might be climbing right now. Are they out of obligation? External pressure? Do the views from those summits really match your idea of freedom, of success? And what curtains in the world of finance, of business, might you feel inspired to peek behind now, to uncover new possibilities?
Thanks so much for taking this deep dive with us today. We really hope you found these insights from Cody Sanchez valuable, maybe sparse some ideas. We'll be back soon with another in-depth exploration, digging into ideas and materials to help you learn, grow, and just navigate this world a bit more effectively.